Kirk Frost had always thrived in the shadows of his life, balancing his business ambitions, family responsibilities, and his marriage to Rashida with a cool, controlled exterior. Celebrity Insider News. On the surface, everything appeared flawless, yet beneath it all, there were cracks he had long since learned to mask. He had perfected the art of hiding the chaos inside, managing the expectations of those around him. But the moment of reckoning was drawing near. It was a typical Thursday afternoon when Kirk's phone buzzed, breaking the monotony of his day. The screen flashed the name Jasmine, sending a jolt of recognition through him. Jasmine Washington had been a part of his life once, someone he loved, but also someone tangled in a web of secrets and unspoken desires. The connection they shared had faded into the background of his life, overshadowed by his marriage to Rashida and his commitment to his family. But now, more than a year since their last encounter, Jasmine's message resurfaced, pulling Kirk back to a chapter of his life he thought had been closed for good. The message carried with it a weight of unfinished business and unresolved emotions. Kirk had buried his past with Jasmine, telling himself that it was over after that fateful night, a night that had changed everything. But as her name lit up his phone screen again, he couldn't help but wonder if his past was about to catch up with him in ways he wasn't ready to face. Kirk had spent years suppressing the memories of his affair with Jasmine, convincing himself that it was a chapter better left closed. But as his trembling hands gripped the phone, reading the message that had come out of nowhere, reality hit him like a freight train. The words were simple, yet they carried a gravity that made his blood run cold. Kirk, I am fully aware of everything and I have the evidence. Pay me $7 million, don't try anything foolish, and watch. The demand was absurd, unthinkable even. But Jasmine was never one to be underestimated. The $7 million might as well have been an impossible sum for him to gather, but it wasn't the money that terrified him, it was the threat she posed. He knew Jasmine well enough to understand that this wasn't just a game to her, it was a calculated move. One designed to destabilize him completely. If he didn't comply, his darkest secrets, the ones he had worked so hard to bury, would come flooding back to the surface. What terrified him even more was the realization that he could never control her. Jasmine had always been a force of nature, unpredictable, sharp, and relentless. She had a fire inside her that Kirk had once admired, but now it was aimed squarely at him. The affair he thought was over, the relationship that had been buried along with his guilt and shame, was now her weapon. And in her hands, it was a power he couldn't hope to control. Kirk's mind raced, trapped in a cycle of denial and fear. Every message from Jasmine felt like a weight on his chest, each one chipping away at his resolve. He had worked tirelessly to build his empire, to create the life he had with Rashida. And now it seemed like it was all about to unravel. The guilt gnawed at him, and the thought of confessing to Rashida was unbearable. He couldn't fathom the look of betrayal on her face, the devastation that would surely follow. He had always prided himself on being able to handle any situation, but this was different. This was personal, and the stakes had never been higher. Despite his best efforts to ignore it, the looming threat of Jasmine's demands felt suffocating. He tried to rationalize it. Maybe he could find a way out, maybe there was some solution. But the more he tried to deny the truth, the more Jasmine's control over him tightened. The money she demanded was far beyond what he could scrape together in a hurry, and even if he could get close, there was no guarantee that would silence her. Her words had a bite, a promise of further destruction if he didn't comply. She wasn't just after money, she wanted power, and she had found his weakness. The pressure was mounting, and every day that passed made it harder to breathe. He couldn't keep ignoring the situation, but he also couldn't bring himself to make a choice that would bring the entire house of cards crashing down. The longer he waited, the deeper the hole he dug for himself, and the more he feared that eventually, he would have no way out. Kirk walked into the meeting with a sense of dread weighing him down. Jasmine's presence was like a storm cloud hovering over him, and he knew this confrontation would be the turning point. She was seated at a secluded table, her eyes never leaving him as he approached. Her calm demeanor was unsettling, knowing the turmoil she could unleash with a single move. The years of secrecy, the late-night calls, and the reckless moments they had shared were all standing between him and his future. Kirk couldn't afford to let her control the narrative any longer. But the truth was, he didn't know how to stop her. As he sat down, he could see the subtle smirk on Jasmine's face, the kind of smile that said she had won even before the game had begun. She knew the hold she had on him, and she relished it. Kirk's mind raced, but he steadied his breath. He couldn't let her see the panic in his eyes, though his heart was hammering in his chest. He had to outsmart her, had to regain control of the situation somehow. Jasmine's demands were clear, but so were the stakes. His marriage, his business, his reputation, all of it was on the line. Kirk leaned forward, forcing himself to speak calmly. He knew he had to make a decision now, and it had to be one that would stop Jasmine in her tracks. She wasn't just after the money. She wanted to break him. He couldn't let her have that satisfaction. But how much of his life was he willing to sacrifice to save the people he loved? Kirk's mind swirled with conflict as Jasmine's words hit him with the precision of a sharpened blade. He could feel his grip on the situation slipping, each word she spoke tightening the noose around his neck. The smug look on her face, the cold, calculating tone in her voice, it was all part of her plan. She wasn't just asking for money, she was playing with his emotions, pushing him to the brink. The $7 million wasn't just a number, it was a representation of everything he had worked for, everything he had built with Rashida. To lose it all now, to give in to this blackmail, would be a betrayal far worse than the one that had led him here. Kirk's eyes narrowed as he struggled to maintain his composure. Jasmine wasn't offering a way out. She was offering destruction. He couldn't help but feel the weight of the decision press down on him. His marriage, his empire, he had always been so sure of everything. But now he was standing at a crossroads with no clear path forward. Could he really sacrifice everything to protect Rashida from the truth? Could he live with the consequences of choosing to keep his secrets buried, even if it meant losing everything he had fought for? Jasmine's words echoed in his head. The price of betrayal. She was right. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the trust that had been shattered, the loyalty that had been broken. And now, it seemed, he was going to have to pay for his actions, one way or another. But as he sat there, steeling himself against her words, a thought crossed his mind. Was he really going to let Jasmine dictate the terms of his future? What do you think? Where will this drama end? Let us know your thoughts in comments section. Also, do subscribe our channel for more crisp content. Thanks for watching.